Fusion has the strongest start to any Metroid game, with a stronger sense of tone and structure to the plot. You're not just some random person genociding planets like you were in the previous games. No, you are Samus and you are trying to destroy the virus that is corrupting the facility, going around destroying virus bosses and being hunted by the SAX clones of you. That feeling of dread Fusion brings to the table, its dense atmosphere and tone are oppressive. It's as though you're trapped in a balloon. But like a balloon, if there are any holes, all of that air will leave and will mean nothing. Because instead of worrying about that tension and fear, you'll instead be frustrated and pissed off. It also doesn't help that Metroid Fusion has 15 holes, and not just one. Firstly, Fusion is simultaneously linear and doesn't properly design around its own linearity. Metroidvanias are well known for being guided in their exploration while still allowing for some level of deviation or alternative paths. Fusion takes a radical approach to the Metroidvania formula and decides to practically kill the exploration for a far more structured and linear game. And that's not a problem. The problem is that the game is simultaneously saying that there is only one path, and very often it obscures that only one path to progress in the game. Take for example this part in Hangar 3. I need to find a way to get around this door. Okay, so how do I do that? I'm gonna go up here and nothing. Oh, there's some power-ups here. Go around here. No, nothing still. What? Okay, nothing. No, help me! Oh, of course. I should have known that I was supposed to walk over here, even though all the blocks look exactly the same. I should have immediately gone there realizing that. How can I be so stupid? Well, you see, it's not actually because I'm stupid, it's because the designers of the level didn't make it so that players could understand how to get through that. There's no signs that are telegraphed at all. As a result for obscuring the progression in the game, this makes it so that the player is constantly wandering around for hours and hours and hours just trying to find out how to progress in the game, only to figure out that you were just supposed to stand on these blocks. There are ways and methods that can be used to telegraph hints to the player that Metroid Fusion even implements into its game. But for some reason, there are also hints that are just not telegraphed at all, and could easily be fixed with some visual cue or something. Take for example that exact room I gave you. Now what if you just remove a single block from that area? That immediately tells you, hey, something's up. Something's going on there. I should probably check that out. Tricks like that can help the player solve the problem by themselves and lead to a far more fulfilling game experience than just being lost for 5 hours and then having to look it up on a guide like I did. But what's worse is that it does this multiple times. It fails at conveying its design multiple times in the game. And because of that linearity, again, you just have to find out the answer. Because there's no alternative paths, there's no exploration, you just have to hope you find the right answer. So again, Metroid's linearity is not a bad thing. The problem is it expects its players to be wizards and find secrets that they could never find without a guide. But oh boy, does it get worse. You know what I like in a good Metroidvania? The bosses. Metroidvanias have always had some of the finest bosses. So what does Fusion bring to the table with its boss fights? For 70% of the bosses in Metroidvania, there is either a very obvious and easier answer, or there is no easy and obvious answer and you die for 5 hours and then you find the easy obvious answer and then you destroy them easily. Now consider Nightmare here. Nightmare is considered by many to be one of the finest bosses made in Metroidvania history. I think he's dumb. Nightmare has this move where he just flies around the whole screen, and because he covers a fourth of the map, it's so hard to avoid him and it's not fun. Even with the spinny power-up, I could barely avoid him when he started spamming. And then I realized something. Now, what if I just positioned myself on the ladder and just spammed missiles? I beat him that attempt. There is no in-between. Either you're getting spammed out by the boss or you're spamming the boss. But to be fair, let's talk about those bosses that I think are amazing. These bosses like Ridley, Samus X, and Robot 2 are actually pretty fun boss fights. You have to use multiple techniques to get around their problems instead of just spamming them with missiles. With these bosses, you legitimately have to strategize and think about which missiles to use or what beam to use. And let's be honest, the Samus X fight is probably the best fight in the whole series. My problem is that I just wish there was more boss fights like it, which is strange because previous Metroid games actually understood this. Take for example Super Metroid. There are numerous and multiple methods to beating bosses. While some bosses like Kraid are just spam, there are some extremely hard but fair and fun boss fights in Super Metroid that need multiple strategies or different strategies to overcome them. Again, Fusion is super unnuanced when it comes to this. Either you have the means to absolutely destroy your enemy, or your enemy absolutely destroys you until you find the answer that absolutely destroys them. But bosses are only part of what makes a video game difficult. You also have to worry about how you handle the pacing of your game. So how good is Fusion's pacing? Fusion is arguably the most difficult Metroid game. And now listen, I'm a hardcore gamer, alright? I beat Dark Souls 2 with my foot. But if there is one major problem with Metroid Fusion's pacing, it's that of health and missiles, and when and how they're distributed throughout the game. Metroid Fusion decided to do something really cool and decided to make the X-Parasites collectibles, in that you can collect them for power-ups and missiles and all that stuff. For the most part though, they effectively serve as your health and missiles while you're traveling throughout the area. But they also thought it would be funny if they just ran away from you. Like all the time. Like, all the time. These items are essential to your survival, and the developers just think that, sometimes you shouldn't be able to get them. In other Metroid games, you've been able to collect health easily. They just stand still. Look at that. Masterful. Why couldn't Metroid Fusion do this? Well, it's because this virus collectible system also allows the developers to do some really cool stuff with it. Take for example this room. You kill a guy and then it turns into this guy, and you can use this guy to get a power-up. That's pretty cool. That's pretty neat. I just wish that, you know, I could collect health and play the game. By making health and missiles two resources that you 100% need to beat the game in Fusion be nigh unreachable in certain areas means that you're practically going from recharge station to recharge station, which just kind of ruins the pacing of Metroid Fusion. For example, how the use of health and missiles in this game ruins the pacing of the game. Let me give you an example with the SAX chase scene. There's this incredible chase scene with the SAX coming after you and attacking you. It's intense, it's dramatic, the music is terrifying, it's horrifying, it's wonderful, and you make it barely out alive. Alrighty, that was pretty cool. Okay, where's my next health station? It's on the other side of the map. Oh yeah, and you know those easy enemies that we had in this area before? Yeah, we're just gonna remove those. Just so you take more damage. And this is genius because that way, if you take too much damage from the SAX, you pretty much have to restart that entire section. Thank you, Metroid Fusion. Very cool. So again, to reiterate, basically because of this health system that does have its cool applications, it results in some poorly handled moments like the SAX chase scene, where afterwards you are left stranded with 0 health and are practically forced to restart the entire section if you screw up. I recall 3 other sections where I had a similar problem because of this pacing issue. I'm going around and because I have no health because the game doesn't provide me enough health or missiles, oops, I die. But you know what? It may not be the best paced game. It may not be designed around its own linearity. It might not even have good bosses. But does it have a great story? No. This story is awful. Metroid Fusion has a lot of dialogue and has no substance to it. Take for example this dialogue right here. Okay, so I have to go here. Then I gotta get the data core, and then I gotta and now I gotta go here. And now I gotta go here. Okay. I go here. Oh. What's the story again? The dialogue is expository and just tells the player where to go instead of actually building characters or ideas. It also doesn't help that this dialogue is how the majority of the story develops. You just have a computer rambling to you. However, there is an exception to the sea of mindless dialogue, and that would be Samus's monologue. Samus now has a far more defined character. Through her monologues, we can see a lot of Samus's perspectives about what's going on in the spaceship, the situation at hand, and this guy named Adam, who helped her through a rough time in her life and then died. While this isn't character progression at all, it is character depth, and I kind of appreciate that. But here's the thing, Samus is the exception to the rule. The rest of the plot, characters, exposition, dialogue, oh boy, you're in for a good time. So real quickly, let's just go through some of the major plot points in the story of the game real quick and see why I hate this story and why I think it impacts this game in a very negative way. Samus get infected by virus. Samus go to spaceship. Spaceship is under attack by virus. Uh-oh. Virus is destroying lower levels of spaceship. SAX stops you from going back to your spaceship to leave. Go to this room, do thing. Go to the next room, do thing. Go to this room, do thing. Go to the next room, do thing. Go to this room, do thing. Uh-oh, the vegetation is killing everything. Okay, go stop that now. Okay, cool. And, oh, the Metroids are back. Cool, we instantly kill them and nothing happens. But uh-oh, Samus wasn't supposed to know that the Metroids were still alive, so now she's locked in this room. And this is where we get the dumbest scene in the entire game. So, you know this computer that's been spamming dialogue this entire time? Yeah, it turns out that's Adam. And he just lets you go. There's no build up to this. It's not revealed in some interesting way, or we don't get any hidden details of it. It's just Adam's alive. Cool. We really needed a whole game to explore this character that has no personality other than calling Samus lady. You know, instead of doing like having a whole adventure to develop our awesome heroine character, or just have a mindless fun adventure story, or maybe exploring Samus's origins. Nah, we gotta talk about this Adam guy. It was really important to make a game about Adam. And then you fight the SAX in this actually really cool climactic boss fight, as previously mentioned before, and then, uh-oh, the queen of the parasite shows up, and then the SAX destroys it? Huh? What? Whatever. And then you beat the game. Now, there's no problem with having a bad story. Take Mario. Mario has no story other than save the princess. And I still love Mario. The problem is when you spend a very significant chunk of your game and the whole design of your game is based around this story. That's when it starts to become a problem. Because if it's not good, then that's a significant amount of your game that's just not fun and people don't want to go through again. No one wants to go through this story where we just have a guy come back to life and that's it. Arguably, this story and plot feels childish compared to the rest of the tone and atmosphere of the game, which again, is perfect. But it doesn't really matter because if the plot's bad, then that tone becomes unnatural and not in a fun way. Metroid Fusion starts off with an incredible tone that is scary and intimidating, and that's what captivated me to further delve into this game. Unfortunately, it did not deliver, because of its extremely poor design, poorly mishandled boss fights, some poorly planned out sections, and to top it all off, a very, very bad story that almost in its entirety counteracts that perfect tone that got me interested in Metroid Fusion. But why even talk about Metroid Fusion? I mean, Dread came out. We should be talking about that Metroid game. Well, the problem is that Metroidvanias suffer from similar problems that Fusion suffers from all the time. Confusing the player, not telling them where to go, and all of these problems that I mentioned in this video are part of the Metroidvania formula to some degree. The best Metroidvanias solve these issues, and addressing them with this video I think could help people who are making Metroidvanias or want to make Metroidvanias understand what you need to consider when making it. 1 out of 10. Okay, we got some cute animals here. We're gonna bump it up a bit. We're gonna bump it up to a 3 out of 10. 3 out of 10. But no more. No more. Adam. Adam. Adum. Damn. Damn this game.